When using Adobe Illustrator, begin by going to File, New. The size of your paper can be found here. We're going to use letter because that fits in our printer. And then you can change the units over here. Inches are what I'm going to use, but millimeters, centimeters, and pixels are all units that we'll cover in this class. Points and picas tend to be used more with graphic design, and if you take that later in your college career or outside of this class, you might run into those. Since many of you have sketched your logo, you might want to load it in as a reference. How you would do that is do Place, or File, Place, and then select your image. As long as YouTube doesn't take this down, I'm going to use the Ghostbusters logo because there's two things I really want to explain that are conceptually used in this logo. Once you do that, you can use your Select tool or Free Transform tool. Hold Shift on your keyboard and drag it up to the size of your canvas. Go in the Layers menu and go ahead and right here next to the eye, hit the caret so you can see just that image and lock it. That way we won't accidentally be moving it during this demonstration. Now this logo needs to be divided into at least 3 sections. So we need to draw the circle, then draw the ghost, and then finally add the slash. How I could make this circle is go 1, 2, 3, 4 down to my rectangle tool and use the ellipse. If anything has a caret, you can click and hold down to get to the additional options. I'm going to give it no fill so that I can see the image behind it, but I am going to give it a stroke. I'll make that stroke red just so that I know it's supposed to be that same object. Whichever way you use for organization is fine for you. Now a lot of students try to draw from the side, and sometimes it's a little difficult to get that matched up until you've used the program enough. So I tend to go to the center of the image, hit Alt, and drag out. If I want this to be a perfect circle, I can also hit Shift and it will constrain that size. After I've made it, I can use the arrow keys just to nudge it in place. And I notice that this image actually isn't a perfect circle. From there, after I've drawn a circle that matches the outside edge, I would draw another one that matches the inside edge. And what I ultimately want to do is I want to cut this hole or this circle out of the big one so that I have this transparent place to draw this ghost. How I can do that, how I can cut any shape out of another shape, is go to Window and Pathfinder. Now, I'm going to use the option -front, but just for your own purposes, know there are a lot of other options, such as Unite, Intersect, Exclude, Divide, Trim, Merge, Crop, Outline, which will outline all our shapes, and -back. If you drew the smaller circle first and then the larger, you could technically use -back. But just because you're still learning, let's all do it the same way. Let's right-click on the middle circle, go to Arrange, and Bring Forward. In fact, let's go Bring to Front, just in case you've accidentally drawn any objects. Bring Forward moves it up 1 step, and bring to front, make sure it's all the way on the top. From there, I'm going to hit Shift and select both of these objects. So I select the little circle, hit Shift, and select the larger circle. From there, I can hit minus front. It doesn't look like much happened, but go ahead and switch that fill and stroke by using this button right here, the swap fill and stroke. And what you'll notice is I now have a donut shape with the circle in the middle cut out. I'm going to keep that right now, but switch it so that I can trace the inside. Now, a lot of students tend to default by wanting to draw these black lines because that's how you do it when you're drawing with pen and pencil. However, if you do that in Illustrator, you try to draw the black stroke and the white fill at the same time, and forgive me, I'm going to be using a mouse to do this. So let me get a couple of them. Although it is quicker, when I select these and add that fill, what you'll notice is that my fill is incredibly uneven, is that it fills here, and has a gap here. And if it never moves, you can kind of fake this, but as an animator, or anyone that needs to resize or print it, such as a printing house, what it's going to do is leave gaps. I've seen students accidentally have their characters lose part of their arm, their face, or even decapitate in the middle of an animation. So you want to think about what need to be the solid shapes. And for this, that white needs to be a solid shape. How you would do that is go ahead and give yourself a fill, but no stroke in the end. But just for ease sake, let's switch it so that you can see the area behind it just in case. And you're going to trace the outline, just the white. Don't worry about those black lines. Draw the contour of the area that is white. Now what I tend to do is I look for any change in curve, and I put a point. But then I also put a point in the middle so that I make sure I have proper lead up to that change in the curve. So since this is a corner, I can do what you guys saw in your preview, where I drag it out, but then hold my Alt to adjust my Bezier. And do that. Now this may not be a technique I'd want to do too much, because as you'll see, I'll start to get some weird kind of bends and dents in it. Because I'm putting a stroke over this, I may be able to do that and just fake it, honestly. That stroke line might hide my imperfections, but in general, and especially because some of those might come out when you resize, you want to try to get both layers as good as possible. Now notice that if I try to take a shortcut and I just grab these fingers, I'm going to go out of the lines. My tracing won't work quite as well. But afterwards, you can actually add more points and adjust the curve. And I'll show you how to do that in a minute. So don't worry, I'm going to fade out so that you do not need to watch this whole thing. And know that for you guys, I want you to do just the complete head and one arm. Alright, so now if I were to switch this, you notice that all of my white area is filled in. There's a couple spots that aren't quite perfect, especially around this hand. So what I would do is I could either use my pen tool and click on the path to add a new point, or if for some reason that wasn't working, I could go to add anchor point or delete anchor point if, let's say, I had an extra point that I wanted to get rid of. Obviously, I didn't want to in this case. If my points are a little misaligned, I can grab the direct select tool, the white arrow, click them, and with it selected, go ahead and move those points. So for this one, I would probably need to add a point because that's not meeting the curve that I want. And what I'm doing is I'm just using my arrow keys to nudge. I also took a shortcut over here. So just know that whatever you do, you can refine it afterwards. Now here, it would need a greater Bezier handle. And I can use, underneath my pen tool, there's a convert anchor point. This allows me to either get rid of a Bezier by just clicking on it, or dragging to make a new one. Great. So if I look at this design, I notice that even though there's black lines, they tend to shrink. And yet my pen tool defaults to staying uniform. However, there is a way to change that. What you can do is click and draw a new area. So I'm going to go ahead and give this one a black stroke. And then when I'm done those lines, with them selected, I have the option to adjust the stroke weight to make it thicker. I can define the brush so that it looks straight, charcoal-y, or a number of other presets. And I can also adjust if it's uniform. This one isn't. It tends to shrink at the ends, so I might want to use Width Profile 1. So now what I would do is I would go through and add all these black lines as a top. For your purposes though, go ahead and just add 2 of them. Those of you who are in class today will be able to tell this video was made when the cricket was still here. So I know this is hard to visualize right now, so let's go ahead and put the fill on this. This one didn't keep that width profile, so I have to turn that back on. Once again, for my outline, I may have to go ahead and adjust the Bezier handles. But if I went through and added all these details, I would start to get the clear shape of this ghost. The last thing though is that he still doesn't have this slash. So to get that, I would go ahead and hold down to get back to my rectangle tool. This is probably the easiest part. I just draw a rectangle, rotate, and there you go. Change that to red, turn on your fills, Just to double check, go ahead and delete your background layer. And once you do that, because this is a white design, you'll probably have to put another color behind it. So I'm going to go ahead and put blue. Then I just right-click, arrange, send to back. From there you can see what you need to adjust, but really this is what's going to be due to me. Thank you and good luck.